Dr. Emily Walker pressed her palm against the ancient wall, feeling the subtle vibration that had haunted her dreams for the past 3 weeks. The ruins on Kepler 186f weren't supposed to be alive. Dead. Yes. Silent. Absolutely. But humming with an energy that made her molars ache. That was definitely not in any xenorchaeological handbook. Dr. Walker. Marcus Thompson's voice crackled through her comm unit. You need to see this. Chamber B7 is, well, it's doing something weird. Emily suppressed a smile. Everything about this dig site had been weird since they'd broken through the outer seal. Define weird, Marcus. The kind of weird that's making our Zexaka observer lose his second set of eye stalks, Marcus replied, his voice pitched higher than usual. Literally. They're retracting into his skull. I didn't even know they could do that. Now that was interesting. The Zexaka were renowned for their unflappable nature. In 2 decades of joint archaeological expeditions, Emily had never seen one display any emotion stronger than mild curiosity. She quickened her pace through the winding corridors, her headlamp casting dancing shadows on walls covered in scripts that defy translation. The temple complex sprawled beneath kilometers of sediment, a maze of chambers that seemed to shift and change every time they mapped them. Traditional scanning equipment failed spectacularly here. Something in the structure's composition scattered their signals into useless noise. They'd been forced to map it the old-fashioned way, with marks on walls and string lines that disappeared overnight. Emily rounded the final corner into B7 and stopped dead. The chamber, previously as dark and dusty as the rest of the complex, now pulsed with a deep blue light that seemed to emanate from between the very atoms of the walls. In the center of the room, Marcus stood with his scanner held out like a shield. Beside him, his Zexaka observer, Valish, had indeed retracted his eye stalks, a sight that would have been comical if it wasn't so alarming. It started when I tried to take a core sample, Marcus explained, pointing to a small drill mark on the floor. The moment the bit touched the surface, the whole room just woke up. Emily approached the drill site slowly, her instruments going haywire. The energy readings jumped between impossible numbers, suggesting power outputs that would shame a small star. Yet the ambient temperature remained steady, and aside from the light show and the persistent humming, nothing seemed obviously dangerous. Valish, Emily addressed the Zexaka observer. Has anything like this been recorded at other sites? The alien's translator crackled to life, its usual smooth tones distorted by what could only be described as fear. Negative, Dr. Walker. This level of active response, unprecedented, highly irregular, suggests immediate withdrawal and orbital quarantine. Emily was about to respond when something caught her eye. The script on the walls, previously static, had begun to move. Not just glowing, but actually rearranging itself like mercury drops flowing uphill. The pattern seemed random at first, but as she watched, she realized they were reacting to her presence. When she stepped left, they followed. When she raised her hand, they mimicked the movement. Dr. Walker, Valish's translator, was practically squealing now. Our species has studied ruins like these for 10,000 years. They are meant to be dead, inactive, historical artifacts only. This is wrong. But Emily wasn't listening anymore. The humming had changed pitch, becoming almost melodic. And there, beneath the subtle vibration of power, she heard something that made her blood freeze and her heart race simultaneously. Words. Not in any human language, not even in any known alien tongue, but somehow she understood them perfectly. The long wait ends, the voice whispered in her mind. The children of chaos have finally come home. Marcus's scanner chose that moment to explode in a shower of sparks, plunging the chamber into darkness. When the emergency lights kicked in, every surface of the room was covered in a single repeating symbol, one that looked suspiciously like a human DNA helix. The real question was, had they found this temple, or had it found them? For the last time, Captain Reynolds, I am not evacuating this site. Emily crossed her arms, staring down the holographic projection of the security fleet officer. After 3 days of increasing activity within the temple, the brass had finally noticed. She wasn't surprised. It was hard to miss an energy signature visible from orbit. Dr. Walker, this isn't a request. Reynolds' jaw clenched. We have 14 different species demanding we shut down your dig. The Mrith are threatening to send a containment fleet. Let them. Emily pulled up her latest readings on her tablet. Captain, we're dealing with technology that's responding specifically to human presence. Do you understand how unprecedented that is? Before Reynolds could reply, Marcus burst into the makeshift command center they'd established near the temple entrance. Dr. Walker, the sealed chamber, it's opening. Emily killed the connection to Reynolds mid-protest. She'd deal with the political fallout later. Right now, history was being made, and she refused to miss it. The sealed chamber had been their white whale for weeks, a perfect hexagonal room with no visible entrance. Now, as Emily and Marcus approached, they could see seams appearing in the previously smooth walls, geometric patterns emerging like frost on glass. Valesh and 2 other alien observers hovered near the back of the corridor, their various sensory organs registering everything. The Zizextka had refused to enter any active chambers since the initial awakening, but their scientific curiosity wouldn't let them abandon the site entirely. Watch this, Marcus said, pressing his palm against the wall. The symbols nearby flared to life, tracking the electrical impulses in his nervous system with trails of light. It only does this for humans. We've had every species on site try it. Nothing. Emily approached the wall, her scientific mindset warring with a bone-deep instinct that told her she was about to step through a one-way door in history. The symbols nearest her hand began to glow before she even touched the surface. It's like it's anticipating us, she muttered, pressing her palm flat against the cool material. The wall felt alive, humming with potential. Marcus, are you recording this? Every angle, Doctor. But these readings, they don't make sense. The energy patterns look almost like... A sharp crack interrupted him as the symbols beneath Emily's hand suddenly burned bright enough to cast shadows. The entire wall rippled like disturbed water, and Emily felt a jolt of electricity race up her arm. Not painful, but intense, like every nerve in her body had suddenly come alive. The alien observers retreated further as the symbols began to move, flowing across the walls in rivers of light. They converged on the center of the chamber, forming patterns that looked eerily like human neural pathways. Dr. Walker, Valish's translator, crackled with static. Our instruments indicate a quantum field is forming. This technology, it exceeds anything in known space. Even the predecessor's most advanced known sites never demonstrated this level of activity. Emily barely heard him. The symbols were changing, shifting from alien scripts into something else, something impossible. Marcus, she whispered, are you seeing this? The flowing light had resolved into English words, hovering in the air like holographic poetry. G-E-N-E-T-C-V-E-R-I-F-I-C-A-T-I-O-N T-O-M-plete Ni-U-R-L-P-T-T-R-N-N-L-I-S-S Human K-A-O-C-O-E-F-F-I-C-E-N-T Optimail Enilating First Contact Protocol. That's not possible, Marcus breathed. How does it know English? How does it know anything about us? Before Emily could respond, the floor beneath them shuddered. The walls of the sealed chamber began to fold inward like origami, revealing a deeper chamber beyond. As the new doorway formed, Emily's tablet screamed with alerts. Energy readings that broke every known law of physics. In the darkness beyond the doorway, something ancient stirred to life. A voice like distant thunder rolled through their minds. We have waited so long for ones like you. The ones who dance on the edge of chaos. The ones who create order from disorder. Welcome, children of Earth. We have so much to show you. Valish's translator gave one final squeal before shorting out completely. In the sudden silence, Emily took her first step through the doorway, toward whatever destiny waited in that impossible room. She couldn't help but smile. First contact protocols were supposed to be careful, measured things. Trust humanity to stumble into it by literally poking an alien temple until it woke up. Marcus Thompson was having a terrible day. First, his favorite sandwich had gone moldy. Then, Captain Reynolds had threatened to court-martial him if he didn't convince Dr. Walker to evacuate. Now, he was pretty sure he'd just accidentally activated an ancient alien superweapon because his elbow knocked against something while he was checking his bootlace. The temple didn't just hum anymore, it sang. Every surface vibrated with a crystalline resonance that set his teeth on edge. Streams of light raced through the walls like lightning through crystal, converging on the central chamber where Dr. Walker stood transfixed. "Marcus," Emily's voice was unnaturally calm. "What exactly did you touch?" "Nothing. I mean, just that panel there, but I barely." He stopped as the panel in question began to unfold like a blooming flower, revealing intricate machinery that seemed to phase between solid and liquid states. The alien observers had long since fled, their various monitoring devices abandoned in their haste. Only Valish remained, watching from what he probably calculated was a safe distance, his eye stalks now fully extended in what Emily had learned was an expression of horrified fascination. The temple's transformation accelerated. Walls shifted and flowed, revealing layers of technology that made their most advanced quantum computers look like children's toys. The air itself seemed to thicken with potential energy. "GENTIC profile, HCCPTID." The voice from before boomed, no longer just in their minds, but reverberating through the physical space. "Human neural patterns co-vo-and-FIRMED." The waiting ended. A figure materialized in the center of the chamber. Not a hologram. At least, not like any hologram they'd ever seen. It had mass, presence, and when it moved, reality seemed to bend around it. The figure wore armor that looked like it was forged from condensed starlight, and its face. "You look human," Emily breathed. The figure smiled, and the expression was perfectly natural. "We looked like many things to many species, Dr. Emily Walker. We chose this form to make you comfortable." Its voice had shifted from the booming pronouncements to something more conversational, though still carrying undertones that made Marcus think of wind through ancient caves. "You know my name," Emily said. It wasn't a question. "We know many things. We have watched, waited, guided, subtly, so subtly, for longer than your species has walked upright." The figure gestured, and the space around them transformed into a star map that made Marcus gasp. "I am a guardian, one of many left behind by those you call the predecessors. We were created to wait for the right species, the ones who could inherit what we protect. And that's us." Marcus couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. "Humans." The guardian's smile widened. "Your doubt, that right there, is exactly why it's you. Of all the species we've observed, humans alone question everything, even their own worthiness. You create art for no reason but to create. You tell stories about things that never were. You look at the impossible, and instead of turning away, you poke it with a stick to see what happens." Valish's translator, apparently repaired, cut in. "This is unprecedented. The predecessor's technology was meant to be studied, not activated. This goes against all protocols." "Protocols," the Guardian said, turning its gaze to Valish, "are exactly what we do not need. The galaxy faces a threat that cannot be defeated by following protocols. We need chaos. We need creativity. We need humans." The star map around them zoomed in on various points of light, revealing more temples, more complexes, all beginning to pulse with the same energy as this one. "Right now," the Guardian continued, "across the galaxy, our network awakens. Each facility recognizes human neural patterns as the key we have waited for. The question is, Dr. Walker, are you ready to understand why?" Before Emily could respond, alarms blared from their abandoned monitoring equipment. Multiple ships had just emerged from FTL travel near the planet. The Mrith containment fleet had arrived. The Guardian's expression shifted to something almost mischievous. Perhaps a practical demonstration is in order. Shall we show our anxious friends above what happens when human creativity meets predecessor technology? Emily and Marcus exchanged glances. They'd come looking for dead history and instead found a very much alive future. And somehow, improbably, humanity was at the center of it all. "Well," Emily said, straightening her jacket, "we did come here to make history." The Mrith containment fleet hung in orbit like a constellation of daggers. Emily watched their positions update on the chamber's holographic display, each ship a point of aggressive intent against Kepler 186's serene backdrop. "They're charging weapons," Marcus reported, studying the readouts, "targeting the temple complex and pretty much everything within a 100-kilometer radius." The Guardian observed the display with what looked suspiciously like amusement. The Mrith, always so predictable. "Shall I show you what a single human-activated defense node can do?" "Wait," Emily raised her hand. "Before we start any interstellar incidents, I need to understand. Why humans? Why now? There has to be more to this than just our creativity." The Guardian's form shifted, its armor rippling like liquid mercury. The chamber around them transformed into a vast cosmic theater, stars wheeling overhead as images from Earth's history began to play out around them. "Consider your species," the Guardian began. "You discovered fire, and instead of just using it for warmth, you learned to forge steel. You looked at birds and decided that yes, humans should definitely try that too. You took wolves, apex predators, and turned them into creatures that help you herd sheep." The images shifted to more recent history. The first moon landing, the Mars colonies, the quantum revolution. "But it's more than that," the Guardian continued. "Other species advance through careful iteration. Humans, you leap, you make impossible connections. Your scientists dream, and those dreams become reality. Do you know how rare that is?" Valesh, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. "The predecessors. They engineered this. They guided human evolution." "Not exactly." The Guardian's smile held secrets. "They created the conditions, like gardeners preparing soil. But what grew? That was all humanity. You evolved not just intelligence, but a specific kind of intelligence, one that thrives on chaos while creating order." The display shifted again, showing strange, geometric patterns that hurt Emily's eyes. The predecessors built this network to defend against something they saw coming. A threat that emerges from the spaces between dimensions, harvesting civilizations for energy. But their perfect, logical systems failed. In their final moments, they realized their mistake. You cannot fight chaos with order. So they needed someone who could improvise, Emily said slowly. A species that could take their technology and use it in ways they never imagined. Precisely. The Guardian's form brightened. "Look at what your Marcus did today. He activated a planetary defense system by accident while checking his shoe. No other species would even consider that possible. Yet here we are." Above them, the Mrith fleet began moving into attack formation. The Guardian waved a hand dismissively, and a subtle ripple passed through space. Every ship's weapon system simultaneously powered down. That, the Guardian said proudly, was not a pre-programmed defense. That was the temple systems reading Marcus's stray thought about pulling their plug and improvising a solution. "Do you understand now? The network doesn't just respond to humans. It learns from your way of thinking." Marcus looked up from his tablet, eyes wide. "The energy readings, they're not random at all. The system is mimicking human neural patterns. Indeed, each facility in the network is adapting, evolving based on human thought patterns. But this is merely the beginning. The real threat approaches, and we need humanity's unique capabilities to face it." Emily watched as the Mrith ships hung helpless in orbit, already imagining the diplomatic chaos this would cause. How long do we have? The Guardian's expression turned grave. Less time than we'd like. The Harvesters sense when civilizations reach certain technological thresholds. Humanity's recent quantum developments have attracted attention. A new alert flashed on their screens. More ships entering the system. Not Mrith this time, but representatives from every major galactic power. Perfect timing, the Guardian said. Now we can demonstrate why humanity's chaos is exactly what this galaxy needs. Dr. Walker, would you like to show our guests what happens when human intuition meets predecessor technology? Emily straightened her shoulders, a plan already forming. It wasn't every day you got to rewrite the galaxy's power structure while preventing the extinction of all known life. Marcus, she said, remember that idea you had about using the temple's quantum field to make a light show? Let's give our visitors a proper human welcome. The Guardian's laughter echoed through the chamber. The real work was about to begin. The holographic conference room was chaos incarnate. Representatives from 17 species shouted, growled, or vibrated their protests in a cacophony that made Emily's translator struggle to keep up. Above them, Marcus's diplomatic light show had transformed the temple's quantum field into a swirling aurora that spelled out Plies Remain Calum in 23 languages. The Guardian, still wearing its human-like appearance, looked positively delighted. This is unacceptable. The Mrith ambassador's scales were flushed deep crimson. You cannot simply hand over predecessor technology to a species that still posts pictures of their infant animals on global information networks. Actually, Marcus chimed in, cat videos are now interstellar. The Centauri colonies can't get enough of them. Emily shot him a look that clearly said, not helping, before addressing the assembly. With respect, Ambassador, we didn't ask for this. The temples are activating on their own, responding to human neural patterns. We couldn't shut them down if we wanted to. Then you should want to. The HFY High Commissioner's eye stalks were doing their anxiety dance again. Dr. Walker, in the past 6 hours, 47 predecessor sites have awakened across known space. The power readings are impossible. The Guardian stepped forward, its armor shifting colors like an oil slick. Impossible, or simply beyond your understanding. The network was designed to adapt, to evolve. Humanity's chaos coefficient is precisely what it needed to reach its full potential. A new voice cut through the argument, calm and measured. The Orcs representative, a being of pure crystalline thought, projected its words directly into their minds. Perhaps we should consider the bigger picture. The predecessors were not known for frivolous actions. If they designed their network to awake humanity specifically, there must be a reason. Yes, Emily seized the opening, and that reason is approaching faster than any of us would like. The Guardian has shown us. She was interrupted by alarms blaring from Marcus's console. Odd. Doctor, remember those temples that were activating? They're starting to get creative. The holographic display shifted to show feeds from across the galaxy. A temple on Proxima b had reorganized itself into what looked suspiciously like a giant space-facing speaker system. Another in the TRAPPIST system was generating quantum-encoded memes about the approaching threat. A third had apparently decided to express itself through interpenetrating fractal patterns that made several alien scientists faint. You see, the Mrith ambassador gestured wildly. Chaos. These sacred sites are being corrupted. The Guardian's laughter filled the chamber. Corrupted? No, ambassador. They're becoming what they were always meant to be. Watch. The feeds merged into a single display showing a vast network of interconnected points of light. Each temple was communicating with the others, sharing and building upon human thought patterns in real time. The network wasn't just awakening. It was learning, growing, becoming something entirely new. Great ancestors, Valish whispered, his translator barely catching the words. They're improvising. Exactly. Marcus couldn't contain his excitement. The temples aren't just copying human creativity. They're riffing on it. Like a galaxy-wide jazz session. Emily watched the network pulse with newfound life. An idea forming. "That's it," she said, turning to address the increasingly agitated assembly. "You're all thinking about this wrong. The predecessors didn't give us a weapon or a defense system. They gave us an instrument. And humanity, we're not its masters. We're its collaborators." The Guardian's form brightened. "Dr. Walker understands. The threat we face cannot be defeated by rigid thinking or predetermined responses. It requires adaptation, improvisation, humanity's greatest strengths." The Orcs representative's crystalline form sparkled with interest. "You propose we all work together. Humans and the ancient network and all spacefaring species. Why not?" Emily smiled. After all, the best jazz comes from collaboration. The chamber erupted in fresh arguments, but Emily noticed something different now. Among the protests, ideas were starting to form. The Zestka were calculating potential quantum harmonics. The Mrith were reluctantly admitting that human unpredictability might have tactical advantages. And somewhere in the vast network of awakening temples, new possibilities were taking shape, guided by humanity's unique ability to find order in chaos, and sometimes, more importantly, to create chaos from order. The Guardian caught Emily's eye and winked. The real symphony was just beginning. "They're called the Resonance," the Guardian said, its form darkening to match the grimness of its words. "And that's not their real name. It's just the closest your languages can come to describing them." The chamber had been cleared of all but the essential personnel. Emily, Marcus, and representatives from 5 key species watched as the Guardian manipulated reality itself to show them their enemy. The resulting image made Marcus's eyes water and Emily's mind rebel against what she was seeing. "Is that geometry having a nervous breakdown?" Marcus asked, tilting his head as if a different angle might help. "They exist in 11 dimensions," the Guardian explained. "Your brains are trying to compress that into something comprehensible. The predecessors spent millennia studying them, trying to predict their patterns. That was their fatal mistake." The Orcs representative's crystalline form dimmed. "These beings harvest civilizations for energy, correct? Why have we never detected them?" "Because they don't exist until they do." The Guardian gestured, and the image shifted to show a galaxy being systematically consumed. They emerge from spaces between dimensions when civilizations reach certain technological thresholds. The predecessors built the temple network to fight them, but perfectly logical defenses failed against chaos, Emily finished. "That's why you needed humans." "Indeed." The Guardian's form brightened slightly. "Watch this." The display showed a simulation of a resonance attack. First, a logical, ordered defense. Precise energy barriers, calculated responses. The resonance simply shifted through different dimensional planes, bypassing everything. Then the Guardian showed the same scenario, but with human-influenced defenses. The network's responses became unpredictable, almost playful. When the resonance shifted dimensions, the defenses shifted in completely random patterns, catching them off guard. Is the defense system playing duck, goose with interdimensional space? Marcus asked incredulously. "The network is learning from human thought patterns," the Guardian confirmed. "Your species' ability to make impossible mental leaps, to find patterns in chaos, and create chaos from patterns. It's the key we've been waiting for." The Mrith ambassador, who had insisted on staying, hissed softly. "You mean to tell us that humanity's irritating tendency to do everything wrong is actually doing everything right?" "Exactly." The Guardian's form sparkled with enthusiasm. "The resonance can predict logical responses. They can counter calculated strategies. But how do you predict a species that took one look at the most dangerous predator on their planet and said, 'I'm going to pet it'?" Valish's translator crackled. "The temples, they're not just adapting to human thought patterns. They're learning to improvise like humans." Emily watched the display as more temples across the galaxy activated, each one developing its own unique personality based on the humans it first connected with. One was apparently trying to learn knock-knock jokes. Another had developed a fascination with Earth's classical music and was rewriting Bach fugues in quantum harmonics. But beneath the almost comical surface, she could see the deadly serious purpose. Each seemingly random adaptation was creating defense patterns that even she couldn't predict. And if she couldn't, how could an enemy? "How long do we have?" she asked. The Guardian's form shifted, showing a complex temporal diagram. "The resonants have already detected the quantum wake of your species' latest innovations. We estimate 3 standard months before the first incursion." 3 months. Marcus looked pale. "To prepare the entire galaxy for an interdimensional invasion." 2 months, 3 weeks, and 4 days, the Guardian corrected. "But don't worry. The predecessors spent millennia building the perfect logical defense network. All you have to do is make it imperfect in exactly the right way." Emily found herself smiling despite the gravity of the situation. "So you're saying humanity's job is to teach the most advanced technology in the galaxy how to think outside the box?" "Indeed." The Guardian's form took on a mischievous glint. "And judging by what the Temple and the Proxima system is doing with cat memes and quantum mechanics, you're already succeeding." The fate of the galaxy now rested on humanity's ability to be utterly, brilliantly, unpredictably human. Emily couldn't help thinking that if the predecessors had planned this, they must have had an incredible sense of humor. Or maybe they just understood that sometimes the best way to fight monsters was with a species crazy enough to look at them and say, "I wonder what happens if I poke it." Emily stared at the holographic representation of her own neural patterns, watching them dance and intertwine with the temple's quantum field. 2 weeks of non-stop preparation had led to this moment, and the choice before humanity was simultaneously simple and impossible. "Let me get this straight," Marcus said, rubbing his temples. "To fully activate the network's defensive capabilities, we need to merge with it." The Guardian's form shimmered with what might have been uncertainty. "Not exactly. Think of it more as teaching the network to dance. But to teach it, humanity must first learn the steps. Through direct neural integration," Emily finished. "We'd be the first species to attempt anything like this." The chamber around them had transformed into a testing facility. Dozens of humans from various scientific backgrounds were attempting different approaches to connecting with the Temple network. Dr. Sarah Chen, a quantum physicist from Mars Colony, was currently trying to teach her Temple node to appreciate jazz. To everyone's surprise, it was working. The quantum harmonics were beginning to swing. "You have to understand," the Guardian explained. "The network isn't just a weapon or a shield. It's alive, in its own way. The predecessors built it to learn, to grow. But it needs, let's call it a creative spark." Valesh, who had become their unofficial alien liaison, watched as another temple successfully replicated a human laugh. "The implications are staggering. You're not just activating these sites, you're teaching them to be human." "Not exactly human," the Guardian corrected. "Something new. A synthesis of human creativity and predecessor technology. The question is, are you ready for what that means?" Emily watched as Marcus attempted to explain memes to a particularly eager Temple eye. The node had taken to generating its own quantum-encoded jokes, each one slightly wrong in a way that somehow made them funnier. "What happens to us?" she asked. "If we do this, if humanity takes this step, what do we become?" The Guardian's form expanded, filling the chamber with a constellation of possible futures. "You become more than you are, while remaining exactly who you are. Your chaos, your creativity, your impossible ability to find patterns in randomness and create randomness from patterns, all of it amplified across the galaxy." "But there's a catch," Marcus said, looking up from his tablet. "Isn't there?" "There's always a catch," Emily muttered. The Guardian nodded. "Once the integration begins, there's no going back. Humanity will be forever linked to the network. Not controlled by it, but partnered with it. Your development as a species will be irrevocably altered. Alerts flashed across their screens. More resonance signs detected at the galaxy's edge. They were coming, drawn by the very changes humanity was making to the network. Time grows short, the Guardian said softly. The network needs your chaos, your creativity, your utterly human way of looking at the universe and saying what if, but it must be freely given. Emily looked around the chamber. Dr. Chen's jazz-playing temple had somehow convinced 3 others to join in, creating a quantum quartet that was breaking physics in ways that shouldn't work but did. Marcus's meme-generating AI had developed a sense of irony and was now creating meta-commentary on its own jokes. Across the galaxy, thousands of humans were connecting with the temples in their own unique ways, each connection creating something new and impossible. You know what this reminds me of? Marcus said suddenly. The Internet. Back in the early days, when nobody knew what it would become, but everyone was just creating, connecting, making something bigger than themselves. Emily felt a smile spread across her face. That's it, isn't it? The predecessors didn't choose us because we're special. They chose us because we've done this before. We took a network of machines and turned it into a platform for creativity, for connection, for chaos and order dancing together. The Guardian finished. So, Dr. Walker, what do you choose? Emily looked at her neural pattern, still dancing with the quantum field. In its complexity, she saw echoes of human history, cave paintings and spacecraft, symphonies and social media, all the beautiful chaos of human creativity. We choose what we always choose, she said. We choose to see what happens next. The Guardian's form brightened to supernova brilliance. Across the galaxy, the network hummed with anticipation. The real question was the galaxy ready for humanity's particular brand of creative chaos? The resonance arrived on a Tuesday. Emily would later appreciate the cosmic irony of eldritch horrors from between dimensions choosing to invade during the galaxy's equivalent of a coffee break. The first breach occurred exactly where the Guardian had predicted, at the edge of known space. What nobody predicted was humanity's response. Are they dancing? The Mrith ambassador's scales had turned an interesting shade of puce as he watched the defense network's reaction to the invasion. Not exactly, Marcus replied, fingers flying across his console. The network is using quantum harmonics derived from Earth's music theory to disrupt their dimensional stability. It just looks like dancing because, well, humans wrote the algorithm while listening to K-pop. The chamber had become their primary command center, coordinating humanity's chaotic defense across thousands of temple nodes. Dr. Chen's jazz quantum experiments had evolved into a galaxy-wide improvisational defense system. Marcus's meme-generating AI had somehow developed into a predictive analytics engine that operated entirely through cosmic jokes. They're adapting, the Guardian announced, its form shifting through warning colors. The resonants are attempting to predict the pattern. Emily smiled. That's exactly what we wanted them to do. On the main display, the temple network's response played out like a symphony of organized chaos. Each time the resonance adjusted to one pattern, the human-influenced nodes would switch to something completely different. One moment, they were using quantum mechanics based on bachata dance steps. The next, they were deploying defense algorithms inspired by cat videos. This is your great defense. The Zizistka High Commissioner's eye stalks trembled. Teaching ancient technology to shitpost across dimensional barriers. No, Emily replied, watching as another resonance attack failed spectacularly against a defense pattern based on jazz improvisation. We're teaching it to be unpredictable, to be human. The Guardian's form brightened suddenly. They're retreating. The resonance cannot maintain dimensional coherence against patterns they cannot predict. But Emily saw something else in the data. They're not just retreating. They're confused. Marcus, are you seeing this? Marcus's eyes widened as he studied the readings. The network isn't just defending. It's communicating. In memes, across dimensions. And, oh my God, I think the resonants are trying to understand TikTok. The chamber erupted in chaos as the implications became clear. The resonants, beings of pure mathematical precision, were attempting to comprehend human creativity. The result was like watching an eye try to understand interpretive dance. Fascinating, slightly horrifying, and somehow hilarious. Don't you see? Emily addressed the assembled alien representatives. This is why the predecessors chose humanity. Not because we're special, but because we're unpredictable. We take rigid systems and make them dance. We look at the impossible and make it laugh. The Guardian's form expanded, filling the chamber with light. The network is not just a defense system anymore. It has become something new, a bridge between order and chaos, logic and creativity. Humanity has taught it not just to fight, but to create. On the displays, the resonants continued their retreat, but something had changed. The temple network was still transmitting, not attacks, but invitations. Memes, jokes, music, art, the entire spectrum of human creativity broadcast across dimensional barriers. Are we? Marcus squinted at his readings. Are we making friends with the interdimensional horrors? Not friends, the Guardian corrected, amusement clear in its voice. But perhaps students. They have never encountered anything like human creativity before. It interests them. Emily watched as the temple network, now thoroughly influenced by human consciousness, continued its transmission of culture, art, and ideas across the dimensional barrier. The resonants weren't just retreating. They were evolving, trying to understand this new form of chaos they'd encountered. So this is how humanity saves the galaxy. The Mrith ambassador seemed caught between disbelief and reluctant admiration, not with weapons or warfare, but by teaching eldritch abominations to appreciate jazz and cat videos. No, Emily replied, watching as more temples across the galaxy joined the great cultural exchange, each adding its own unique human-influenced voice to the cosmic conversation. We saved it by being exactly who we are. A species that looks at the incomprehensible and says, let's try to understand each other. The Guardian's form shifted into something like a smile. The predecessors built the perfect system, but humanity made it beautifully imperfect. And that has made all the difference. Across the galaxy, temples hummed with new life, broadcasting humanity's chaos into the ordered void. And somewhere in the spaces between dimensions, beings of pure mathematics were learning to dance. It wasn't the end they had expected. But then again, humanity's greatest strength had always been finding unexpected solutions to impossible problems. And sometimes, those solutions involved teaching cosmic horrors how to laugh.